Come in. My name is the Vagrant, and I know many things, for I walk by night. I know the terrible secrets kept by those who dare to step into the shadows, such as the man in tonight's story, who's about to learn the true price of fear, in a tale known as Dollar Jack.
If there is a bright, good place in this universe, then it is roughly located as far away from Amistad, California, as one could possibly get. Often called the most godless city in America, from its very founding, it has been tied to crime, unexplained disappearances, violence, and criminal organizations. A fitting home for Jack Dietz, locally known as Dollar Jack. There wasn't a moral or virtue to be found, and that was just how Jack liked it. He didn't need those sort of things. He got along just fine, being completely selfish and deplorable. He made his way through life as a professional thief, after all. He had just gotten up and was drinking a bottle of hooch for breakfast. Like most mornings, he stared across his two-room studio at the old, faded photograph of his parents. He could still hear the thumping of his father's crutches. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Jack grumbled for whoever was there to go take a walk. But then a large man opened the door. Jack rolled his eyes and reached for his gun, but the man held up a large roll of money and introduced himself as Kevin. Jack slowly took his hand away from the weapon and told Kevin to have a seat. Kevin explained that he had a job for Jack. Nice and easy. His target would be an office building, currently being rented out by the Encompass investment firm. The goal was to find any records or information regarding an incident at the Mayville Ranch, or anything in relation to Encompass's vice president, Lawrence Brawley. After agreeing on a price, Jack filled his pockets with his lockpick tools, a gun, and a silver flask. He took a cab and soon stood before the office. Kevin said they were renting it out, while a building was being constructed in the nearby town of Peeksport. Jack snickered at the whole idea. Somebody with morals or principles would never have agreed to any of this. After all, he would need to find something akin to the Manhattan Project for any court to accept his findings. It was a good thing for Kevin, though. Jack couldn't care less about things like the Human Rights Act. He cleared his throat and took a drink from his flask, then rushed into the front door of the office. Holding his hands over his mouth, he staggered left and right. The doorman took half a step back, and Jack just looked up at him with wide eyes. The man pointed to a hallway and told him that the restrooms were there. Jack mumbled a quick thank you before running into the hallway. Once he was out of sight, he ducked into the first door he saw and dropped the act. He loved these old buildings. Places were so much easier to rob when they had been constructed without the intention of having security cameras. After a moment to collect himself, he started walking down the halls of the office, doing his best to look like he belonged there. Oddly, he saw almost no one there at all. A couple people maybe in one office or another. He was tempted to ask them for help finding Brawley's office. He figured he could pose as a new hire, but that would be risky. He didn't want to have to lie, because too many lies would become hard to keep straight. Luck was on his side, though. He found a door with a sign taped to it that read, "Lawrence's office. Keep out. This means you." Jack could only smile at such a warm greeting. Of course, the door was locked, so he checked around the corners to make sure no one was coming, and started using his tools to force the door open. As the lock clicked and the door slowly creaked open, Jack thanked whatever lazy fool had made the basic doorknob. He would have hated for his payday to come with a challenge. The room beyond the door was a cluttered mess of papers, boxes, and folders all stacked on top of each other. The only spot with any kind of space was a desk with a chair and a lamp. He didn't care much for gambling, but if he had to bet, he would bet that there was something very interesting in that desk. These big company types just love their desks, like big wooden teddy bears that keep things safe. Too bad, just like teddy bears, they never actually work. He sat down in the chair and turned the light on before he started looking through the drawers. Each was full of folders, which he tried to quickly flip through. Once again, luck played into his hand. He saw the name Mayville in one of the folders that was labeled Project Adam. Jack glanced through the folder, and the air was driven from his lungs. Project Adam. It was madness. Reading about this project suddenly brought ugly memories to mind. His father telling him of the horrors of war, the camps, the crutches. He fumbled through his pockets with trembling hands for his flask and greedily started to drink whatever was left of his hooch. He was upset that the drink wasn't strong enough, or plentiful enough, for his nerves. He almost threw it, but that was when he saw the inscription on the flask. Jack, when the time comes, I know courage will be thy name. Love, Dad. Jack put the flask down on the desk and folded the papers from the folder up and stuffed them into his pockets. He was about to leave. He had what he came for. Even if Project Adam was insanity, there wasn't a judge in the United States that wouldn't throw the book at Encompass for these things. But that was when he saw something strange. A lock on one of the drawers. Something inside told him he wanted whatever was behind that lock. So, he took out his tools again and started getting to work. He started to feel uneasy. This lock was much harder than the door had been. Whatever was inside had to be important, and important things were dangerous. But finally the lock did give way, and he was in. There was just one folder that was titled Trophies. He opened it and felt his booze coming back up his throat. He closed the folder and looked away, then peeked back inside. He was shaking. The folder was full of photographs of children. That was when he heard a voice. A real cut above, aren't they? Jack looked up to see a skinny, pale man standing in the doorway. He had a patch covering his right eye and a sick smile on his face. But the worst thing about him was his one good eye, a bright, soul-piercing blue color. I assume you're the guy that pretended to toss his cookies earlier. I'm sure you can already guess, but you've made a very big mistake. Jack never took his eyes off the man, even as he stuffed the photos from the trophy folder into his pockets. Oh, no. I can't say I like that. See, they'd bring the noose back if the public ever saw my little collection. The one-eyed man, whom Jack could only assume was Lawrence, suddenly pounced. Jack tried to duck past him, but he stumbled into a stack of papers. Before he could find his footing again, Jack felt a pair of hands wrap around his neck. Jack gasped for air as Lawrence loomed over him, strangling him with incredible strength. His vision was blurring, but one thing caught his eye. Something metallic, reflecting light from the lamp. Jack reached out, grabbing it, and slammed it against the side of Lawrence's head. The blow was enough to break the stranglehold. Jack allowed himself a moment to realize he was holding his flask, while Lawrence screamed in anger and lunged once again, but this time Jack was ready. Clutching his fist around the flask, he caught his attacker right on the bridge of the nose, and Lawrence crumbled to the ground, groaning in pain. Jack tipped his hat, turned, and ran. Jack didn't stop for anything, charging his way past the doorman and even a couple of people that were on the sidewalk. He didn't stop until he was at least a block away. His job had been a success, but looking down at the flask still in his hand and his bruised knuckles, he knew he wasn't in the clear. He ducked into a general store as quickly as he could. He didn't bother counting out the money for the things he bought. He just threw the entire roll of money Kevin had given him and told the cashier to keep the change. A few minutes later, he was walking out of the post office. He turned down a dark alleyway and waited. Night was creeping in. The streetlights were just turning on, and long dark shadows from tall buildings covered every corner. He could hear footsteps coming towards him, and an odd clicking sound. He looked at his flask one last time before stuffing it into his pocket and pulling out his gun as he turned. He laughed when he saw what was behind him, what Encompass had sent to take care of him. He honestly thought he'd be more afraid when this finally happened. But maybe, for the first time in his adult life, he wasn't afraid of anything. He simply aimed and fired with a smirk on his face. The next morning, Kevin turned the radio on while he was getting dressed, when a news report came on that overnight, a local thief named Jack Dietz, formerly known as Dollar Jack, had been found dead. Witnesses claimed they heard a gunshot and soon found the mangled, mutilated body. They believed that it was a large animal of some kind, though no evidence of what the creature was found at the scene. Police were, of course, advising people to stay indoors after dark, until the creature was found or killed. Kevin cursed and turned the radio off. He sat down in his chair, with guilt creeping over him. He should have just done it himself. He shouldn't have pulled another person into this. That was when there was a loud knock on his door. He answered, and it was a special delivery from the post office. Just a simple, large envelope, addressed from Dollar Jack. And inside was everything. The papers on Project Adam, the photographs, and a letter.
Kevin, I found what you wanted. These guys are bad. Real bad. Sadly, I wasn't able to get out unseen. They'll come for me, and honestly, I'm not sure I'll be able to give them the slip. I'm sending you the evidence this way, so hopefully they'll lose the trail. But also, I wanted to thank you. Thank you for this job, and thank you for this last chance. My father fought the good fight in the Second World War. A German grenade took his leg. He lived his life on crutches after that, and I always said that won't be me. I wasn't going to give my skin for the greater good. No, sir, not me. But seeing what they are doing, what they want to do with this Adam project, and that isn't even getting into the evil I saw behind Lawrence's eyes, I realize, now too late of course, that if I stood by and just kept on the safety of the sidelines, that I'd be giving those bastards a free hand. So if this is all she wrote for me, let the world know. I didn't go out that way. I didn't get out of the way. I fought the good fight. Yours truly, Dollar Jack.
Connect itorum convenient.
And greedily started to drink whatever was left of his hooch.